Welcome, everyone. We're just going to give folks another minute or so to get into the Zoom room. Thanks for being here. Okay, I think we'll go ahead and get started. Good evening and welcome to our public meeting to review the draft Sonoma County Community Wildfire Protection Plan, or CWPP. My name is Tracy Cattleman and I'll be facilitating tonight's meeting on behalf of Permit Sonoma and Digital Mapping Solutions. Thank you for joining us tonight and contributing your time to help prepare where you live for wildfire. Tonight, we're here to share what we've been doing this past year to create the draft CWPP. This meeting is targeted for residents in Sonoma County's 3rd supervisorial district, although everyone is welcome. Tonight's process will work best from your computer versus a phone, so if you're able to, please join us via your computer. We're recording tonight's meeting and it will be available soon via the Permit Sonoma YouTube channel, where it will also have closed captioning. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce Carol Safford from Permit Sonoma to introduce some of our partners with us tonight. If you've been working in fire and especially community wildfire preparedness in Sonoma County, you've likely worked with Carol. She's been leading this effort for decades, including as the principal author of the original 2016 CWPP, and she's spearheading this CWPP update process for the county. Welcome, Carol. Go ahead and turn on your video.
Good evening, all, and thank you all for being here tonight. This is great. We appreciate you showing up. And I just wanted to introduce some of our fire folk who are in the room with us tonight. We have Ben Nichols from CAL FIRE, as well as Cindy Foreman, the fire marshal from the Sonoma County Fire District, and Fire Marshal Paul Lowenthal from the city of Santa Rosa. And Paul and I have worked closely together as we've developed this countywide plan to make sure that it jives well with the Santa Rosa plan. So he's been a really great partner for us in the development of the CWPP, as have Ben and Cindy. And we will be accepting questions for those guys through the chat as we move on, and we'll have a little more chance to hear from them a little later in the evening. So thank you all for being here.
Thanks, Carol. So first, we're going to just go through a few quick Zoom basics. If we could have the next slide, Christina. Please be sure you are muted and to turn off your video. And if you're not familiar with Zoom, you can send direct chat messages to our team via the chat icon on your toolbar, which is likely on the bottom of your screen and probably in the middle. If you need subtitles, you can enable live transcription on the bottom right of your screen by clicking on the live transcript icon, then select show subtitle. Bienvenidos a nuestros vecinos quienes prefieren hablar en español. Perdona, pero no tenemos interpretación hoy. Si necesita ayuda en español, por favor, mándanos un mensaje por chat. Next slide. So Zoom provides a couple of options for your audio. If you don't have a great internet connection or having a hard time hearing us, click on the up arrow next to the audio icon, which is below the microphone at the bottom left of your screen. And from there, you can choose to switch to phone audio and follow the instructions to link your audio and video or computer connection. If you have any other questions or issues using Zoom, please send Christina a message in the chat. Next slide. So tonight's meeting is designed to share with you the draft Sonoma County Community Wildfire Protection Plan, or CWPP, to encourage your input. We want to hear from you, as this is a community wildfire protection plan. In other words, our purpose tonight is to engage Sonoma County residents in the review of the public draft of the Sonoma County CWPP and its meaningful implementation. Next slide. In terms of our outcomes, or what we expect us all to leave this meeting with tonight, our intention is that Sonoma County residents will have a general understanding of what the CWPP includes, who's leading the process, and how it can be used, the findings of the CWPP and the related wildfire risk assessments, the CWPP proposed priority projects, that's a tongue twister, and how to include future projects in the process. And next slide. How to submit your comments on the public review draft CWPP and that you are empowered to do so. And finally, we as a CWPP team will receive initial feedback from you on the draft CWPP. Next slide. Finally, this is our agenda for tonight. We'll start with a quick overview of how we got here today, followed by a brief presentation by your County Supervisor Corsi. We'll then provide a series of short presentations about the risk assessment we developed for the CWPP and the process to identify priority projects. We will then host a general discussion listening session regarding the projects for this district and show you how to submit additional projects. This is also an opportunity for you to provide comments on the CWPP if you had a chance to review it and to ask any relevant questions. Finally, we'll explain in more detail how you can provide comments on the CWPP by February 28th, and then we will close the meeting by 7:30. We'll stick around another 15 minutes or so after that in our virtual parking lot to answer any final questions anyone might have following the meeting. We know that there are many of you with us tonight who have suffered enormously over the last 5 years from the profound losses due to wildfire. All of us here want to acknowledge your losses and thank you for your strength in coming tonight to collaborate towards finding ways to live with fire in Sonoma County. We're now going to move into the presentations for the evening. We'll begin with a presentation by Caroleon Safford from Permit Sonoma. Caroleon will share with you the background and history to get us to this draft CWPP. Welcome, Caroleon.
Again, thanks everybody for being here. And the purpose of a CWPP at base is to bring together all of the residents, agencies, and groups in the wildland urban interface, or WUI, as we refer to it, to collaboratively identify wildfire issues and risks and prioritize areas and strategies to reduce risk to life, property, and the environment. The first county CWPP was created in 2016 and signed about a year before the fires of 2017 forever changed Sonoma County's relationship with wildfire. This update reflects the changes to our environment and how we as a community thinks about wildland fire. Next slide. To do this, the collaborative aspect was we did meetings in all 5 supervisory districts and solicited comments through those meetings, as well as via messaging from our website and email. We have a large steering committee consisting of folks from agencies across the county, and we've had regular meetings with them to solicit their input, as well as ongoing research outreach through groups like Fire Safe Sonoma, who have been super helpful in keeping people engaged in the process. Next. So there's a lot of pretty cool updates from the 2016 version. The 2016 version was largely written before there was a lot of understanding of the degree of risk that Sonoma County was facing, very small budget. And with this version, we've been able to do a lot more with the help of digital mapping solution and Esther and our whole team here. There's still a quote unquote print version, which is mostly living in PDF format on the website, which is enhanced and improved and changed. But even more exciting is the interactive story or hub map, which is where all the maps for the project live and all kinds of really wonderful stuff that I really hope that you all take the opportunity. Esther will be talking more about all of those things, and there's tons of fun stuff to do on the hub site. So I really recommend that you go there. Next slide. The CWPP really is a comprehensive resource which helps residents to understand risk and to undertake wildland fuels reduction work on private and public lands by hardening structures, reducing flammable vegetation, and preparing for emergencies. It's really a tool to help communities and agencies plan for projects which they will then look to implement through grant funding or however we do that. And we really hope that it encourages collaboration and conversation between all of us that are involved in this wildfire problem that we have in Sonoma County. Next. One of the things that you really should take a look at in the hub site is this GIS-based risk index, which Esther is going to be describing. But I really wanted to call out the Sonoma County WRI statistic tool, which is here, and you'll see the icon for that in the hub site. This will allow you to draw a little polygon, a little around an area, look at what the risk is in that area, how many houses are in that area. It's an awesome tool, very fun to play with. So feel free to go and play around with that. Next. The CWPP itself is broken down into a lot of sections. It is long. We really hoped that we could, write a CWPP that would fit on the back of an envelope. Didn't work out that way. It's several hundred pages long, including the long list of appendices that we have in there. So if you want to just get an idea of what it is, I really recommend that you go to the executive summary and use that as a guide to figure out where it is that you want to read. It's pretty fun reading though, honestly. So we have a chapter that looks at the demographics of the county, one that really looks deeply at the fire and the fire ecology and wildfire suppression history, and a lot of interesting stuff in there. A wildfire assessment and how the assessment was created, recommendations for key activities, and finally the appendices, which have detailed documents that support and supplement the CWPP information in the rest of the plan. Next. Most importantly, this is your CWPP. And we really are anxious to hear your thoughts and what you think of the document. If there are things in there that you would like to see in there that aren't in there, please do let us know. The review period is open until February 28th. And we really hope that this will remain for the next 5 years, which is how long it can live before it has to be completely revised. We really hope that it will remain a living document through that period, especially through using our ranking tool for entering projects and joining in the collaboration about which projects in the county are the best projects for reducing risk and helping moving those forward. And we will be updating those, the project list well into the future. Next. So public comments again are going to be due by February 28th, and you'll see how to do that a little later. Christine will show you the review process. We'll be presenting it for signature to the board and the other signatories, most likely on May 3rd, which is during Wildfire Prevention Week, after which we will annex the CWPP into the multiple jurisdiction hazard mitigation plan that this is a part of, which will help us obtain federal funding into the future. And then we will do ongoing maintenance and project review, hopefully in conjunction with Fire Safe Sonoma and other agencies across the county. So that's how we'll be moving forward. Next.
Thank you, Caroline, for that great introduction and background to the CWPP. We now will hear a brief presentation from your County Supervisor, Chris Coursey, regarding wildfire and preparedness in the 3rd District. Welcome, Supervisor Coursey.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our staff, our fire and safety partners, and especially to members of the public who've joined this meeting. This is an important part of our preparation for wildfires in Sonoma County. The last time this document was updated was 2016, and we all know that we've learned a lot since then, but we want to hear from the public about what you've learned that we may have missed. You live in these areas. This meeting is for District 3 residents. District 3 has changed a little bit in the last month, actually more than a little bit. But whether you live in the old District 3 that includes areas in the wildland-urban interface, areas that burned, like Fountain Grove in 2017, areas that have the great potential for that type of fire activity, like Montecito Heights, whether you live there or whether you live in Southwest Santa Rosa, which is the new 3rd district. We want to hear from you about your experiences, your on the ground knowledge, whether it's a fire or an evacuation or the smoke effects of a fire. All of that is worthwhile knowledge that we're looking for you to share. So, this document is about preventing fire and preparing for fire, because we're not going to prevent every fire. We already know that. We want to be better at the way we prepare and respond. So that's what this is about. I want to emphasize, Carleon was saying, talking about the fun document, and you don't hear those two words put together very often in the same sentence. But if you are willing to share your knowledge and you're interested in having your voice heard, this is your opportunity. Not just tonight, but this document, as she said, there's more than 400 pages on the website. And you can actually put your notes and your comments right onto the document as you read it on the website. So this is an interactive process. We want to hear from you. So again, thanks for being here tonight. Please help us do our jobs better, and with your neighborhood and your local knowledge involved. Thanks.
Thank you, Supervisor Corsi, for your opening words this evening and setting the stage for why this is such an important public process for all Sonoma residents. I totally agree with you that the best CWPPs are those that combine the best available science with real local knowledge. And all the data can't give us the kind of information that you all know from living where you live, and how fire has affected you, and how fire burns where you live, and where the places that you're most concerned about. So that's why we're here tonight. We really want to hear from you over the next month and incorporate your knowledge, your local knowledge and information. So moving on, jumping into tonight's review of the CWPP findings. If you've participated in any of our CWP process up to now, including via the online hub site and story maps that Carleon mentioned earlier and we put in the chat, you've probably heard us talk about the risk assessment. Esther Mandino, the CWP project consultant lead team member from Digital Mapping Solutions, will now introduce the results from the risk assessment process she led, and that will include that WRI statistics tool that Carleon mentioned as well. Please turn your attention to this pre-recorded video of Esther.
Thank you, Tracy, and hello, everyone. My name is Petronila Esther Mandeno, but you can call me Esther. Today, I'm going to quickly review some of the content we have online that explains our Wildfire Risk Index, as well as some of the tools we have that allow you to explore that index. Then I'll present some general results. We will start at the Sonoma County CWPP hub site. You can access the hub site directly from the main CWPP website by clicking on the Big Go button. Once there, you can read through our text that explains a little bit about the project and define some terms. Scrolling down, we come to our maps and tools. The very first image card is our Sonoma County CWPP project list. The second is the Sonoma County Wildfire Hazard Index. And the third is the Sonoma County Wildfire Risk Index, or WRI. Then we have our community base map with a lot of the baseline data we used in the CWPP. There's also the Sonoma County WRI statistics tool. And the next card is a map I put together overlaying fire history on top of our calculated WRI. There are a few more maps and tools up there, but for now, we'll click on the Sonoma County WRI statistics card to view it. This map is a web application that allows you to explore the Wildfire Risk Index in detail. You can use this tool to generate statistics and data to help you when submitting a project into our CWPP project ranking tool. Or you can use it to develop your projects in general or to get information you may need for a grant application or report. The Welcome Splash page has some important information you should take the time to read. These maps and tools will remain online so you can explore them anytime and for as long as you need. For now, I want to go through a summary of the results of the WRI for Sonoma County. On this slide, titled Sonoma County Statistics, I show the average wildfire risk index for Sonoma County, which is 3 or high on our scale. Remember, we are using a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being low and 5 being extreme. Incidentally, the average wildfire hazard index and average ember load index for all of Sonoma County is also high. The average road index, which has a similar scale as the other indices but reversed, is 4 or very poor. For the CAL FIRE fire hazard severity zones, I didn't average those values because it's not spatially distributed across the county like our indices are. But the values range from low to high in the state responsibility areas and very high in the local responsibility areas. Finally, we estimated over 200,000 structures in the county with an estimated population of around 490,000. Roughly 187,000 parcels in the county are impacted, which is just about all of them. In the next few slides, I want to show how the data in the WRI can be used to highlight areas of concern in the county. This slide shows the highest WRI. That would be any area with a WRI of 5. And the areas with the highest WRI are highlighted in cyan on the map and include places high up in the Mayacamas Mountains in the northeastern portion of the county, as well as areas surrounding Cloverdale. Just east of Santa Rosa is a large area of concern, as well as the surrounding area around Sonoma Mountain and north and east of the town of Sonoma. West of Highway 1, we have scattered areas north of the Russian River that scored high for wildfire risk, as well as areas just south and west of Petaluma. This next slide looks very similar to the last one, but there's a subtle difference. Instead of just highlighting the areas with the highest risk index, I also selected for the poorest road access. Many of the same areas are highlighted, but a few were removed, particularly around cities which have better road access. This map is an example of how the WRI can be used to focus on areas or communities that are at highest risk and that have the worst road access according to our assessment. I won't read through all the areas listed on this slide, but remember you can explore the WRI in depth anytime using our online tools. This next slide is another example of how the WRI can be refined by selecting for both the highest risk index and the highest ember load index. Again, the areas shown are similar to the other maps, but we are homing in on the areas most at risk to extensive ember loads in the event of a fire. Places in the Mayacamas Mountains, like Black Oats, Big Sulphur Creek, and the lower portion of Mount St. Helena. North of Guerneville, areas surrounding Cazadero, Goat Rock, which is an area near Bear Pen Creek and not the Goat Rock over on the coast, Moorheart Ridge, Ward Creek, northwest of Pole Mountain, north of Rio Nido, northwest of Monterio, and finally south and east of Petaluma. That's all the time I have right now to go through what we learned through the CWPP risk assessment, but I'll be available for questions throughout this meeting and in the next few minutes.
Thank you for listening to Esther sharing about the risk assessment and the wildfire risk index. We have a few minutes now for questions and answers about the risk assessment and the results. To send us a written question, please use the chat function via the chat icon on your screen. Please send your questions to me, Tracy Cattleman, via chat. You can also raise your hand to ask your question live. To raise your hand, go to the reactions icon on your Zoom window and then select raise hand. So does anybody have any questions for Esther about the risk assessment and what she just shared? The risk assessment, the wildfire risk index, how you might use that, all that. Don't be shy. Give it another minute. There was a question about the CWPP being in PDF format and in addition to interactive, and that is an option. And Christina will explain later this evening how you can download the PDF and submit comments that way. Well, I guess you all understood the risk assessment or the WRI. I think we'll go ahead and move on unless anybody's got any questions. Okay, great. So then moving on to projects, which is what most people are really interested in. Part of the CWPP process is to identify a list of prioritized projects to reduce hazardous fuels and identify actions to reduce structural ignitability, meaning losing less homes and other buildings to fire. That's part of the Healthy Forest Restoration Act that made CWPPs happen back in 2003. So Carol Leon introduced our project ranking tool earlier. Esther will now explain that tool in more detail. So please give your attention to Esther regarding priority projects and recommendations in the draft CWPP and how to submit your projects. Take it away.
Hello again. I'm going to go over how we handle the input that we received from you all. As you may know, last year we held 5 public meetings asking you about fire prevention and fuel mitigation projects you thought should be implemented in your neighborhood and Sonoma County. We summarized that input and used your project ideas to create our CWPP recommendations. The summary of projects from each meeting can be reviewed via the Hub site meeting summaries. Let's go there now. Remember, you can access the Hub site via the Big Go button from the main CWPP website, or you can use the URL that we'll copy into the chat box. You'll find the meeting summaries towards the bottom on the Hub site. Just keep scrolling down, and you can click on any of the map images and a PDF document will open containing the summary for that meeting. We also have the data summarized by an Excel sheet that we can provide upon request. Note that many of the project ideas submitted during our public meetings were just that, ideas. As great as they are not fully developed projects ready for funding that we can add to our project list. So instead of listing these project ideas on our project list, the CWPP recommendations were developed with your project ideas in mind. Please review these carefully to make sure your project idea is reflected in one of those recommendations. You can find the recommendations in Chapter 5 of the draft CWPP. The CWPP recommendations are general actions that affect the entire county or could affect the entire county. For example, many concerned participants cited the need for improved road access and evacuation preparedness and education. So our recommendations for evacuation readiness within Sonoma County include developing targeted evacuation preparedness education materials for diverse populations, improving street and route signage throughout the county, and identifying evacuation routes in communities that are constrained by few or narrow routes. The project list in Appendix A of the CWPP contains all the fully developed projects submitted formally to us either via email or the mapping tool we used last year. If you have a fully developed project that did not get on the list, either whether it's funded or seeking funding, we want to know about it. A fully developed project is one that has a targeted area identified with well-developed project goals, a description, timeline, and a preliminary budget. To submit your project so that it will be listed in the CWPP, we ask that you please use our project ranking tool, which can be accessed from the Sonoma County CWPP project list page. It is the first image card you'll encounter on our hub site. And once there, you'll find the actual project list in a spreadsheet format. This is a read-only Google Sheet containing all the projects submitted to the Sonoma County CWPP. The first tab has all the projects listed in the order they were submitted. And the second tab explains how the point system works and how a first, second, or third priority is assigned based on those points and the overall project budget. Directly under the spreadsheet is a section containing links to the project ranking tool. Please read through the text we provided to help you fill out the form on the project ranking tool. The list of questions is provided as a separate PDF document that you can review on a separate browser tab. Clicking on the project ranking tool button will take you to a 10-page form. Yes, that's right, 10 pages. It will take you some time to fill this out. So again, please read through the text on the previous page to ensure you are ready to answer all the questions. The last section on the Sonoma County CWPP project list webpage is a map of all the projects listed. From this map, you can click on any project submitted and get all the information entered for that project. Use this map to find out what specific and detailed projects are planned in the vicinity of your area of interest. That's all the time I have right now. Remember, you have until February 28th to submit a project to be included in the 2022 CWPP. After which you can still submit a project using our online project ranking tool. However, anything submitted after February 28th will not be included in this version in the 2022 CWPP, but it will be included after review, next year's review. Thank you.
Thanks, Esther, for that introduction. I did want to mention to have y'all take a look at that chapter 5 in the CWPP, the recommendations. Those are the general recommendations basically affecting Sonoma County as a whole. And we talked a little bit about the length of the document. The CWPP itself is only 90 pages, only 90 pages. The rest, the appendices, are long, and there are a lot of information there, with the idea being that that's information that all of you can use in your work to prepare your community, to write grant proposals, whatever that may be. So we put all that up there as a resource for you, and the hub site has a ton of information. Esther mentioned you can download data from the hub site. It's an awesome resource. So Carol Leon's going to now explain a little more detail about the projects, including the proposed projects for the supervisorial district. So take it away, Carol Leon.
So this is the map of the projects that are entered into the ranking tool that Esther just showed us. And as you can see, there's nothing yet that's been entered into the 3rd district. Of course, we would love to have them entered in there. That means somebody has to do it, and therein lies the rub. It takes a little time to do it, but what we'd really like to see is everybody's projects throughout the county eventually showing up on one map, so we can really light up where we see projects happening. Next slide. So since we don't have any projects yet listed in for Santa Rosa, we've just put in here, these are the actionable items that were identified in your own CWPP. And what I'd really like to say about this is that a lot of these Santa Rosa Fire and others have written grants that are addressing multiple of these actionable items. And the ranking tool sort of can function as a GIS database of fuel treatments occurring on public and private lands. So several of these actionable items actually have been undertaken or will soon be launching grant projects to do fuels treatment, structure hardening, outreach and education, and all kinds of stuff. So that to me is, I'm really wanting to call out the really great things that the Santa Rosa CWPP has already done through the process of getting this done and moving forward. So hopefully we'll see more projects getting entered into the future. Next slide. So this list of countywide accurate project lists to see countywide trends is really important. I spend a lot of times in meetings talking to folks about what are we going to do about the wildfire problem. And this is one of the biggest issues that we have in the county. And unfortunately, it's not that easy to do. It does require a commitment from folks, but it encourages cooperation between agencies and groups, and also allows, will really help folks if they can go in and take a look at the project list that's on the ranking tool data entry site. You can learn, like, get a lot of ideas from that. You could look at other people's projects and go, whoa, that's a good idea. Or you can look at the map and go, geez, those people are right next to me and they just did the same kind of project I want to do. How can I integrate those two together? Can we make a stronger projects together than we did separately? One of the things that we're really excited about is the ranking tool is being used by the Open Space District for their round of grants, which is just are due on Friday. So that's really going to populate the map with a lot more potential projects. And we're excited about increasing buy-in for using this tool. Next. So into the future, as I mentioned before, we're really hoping that at least an annual, maybe even biannual meeting to review the projects that are in and really look at the rankings and look at what are the most important projects in the county will really help us to begin to bring action forward to reduce risk across the county. Fire Safe Sonoma, we're hoping, might be a lead in helping us to do those collaborative meetings. Next. So the ranking tool does provide an actual score based on your project. And that score is calculated based on the risk from the Wildfire Risk Index and the CAL FIRE Fire Hazard Severity Zones if they apply in your area, as well as how well the project addresses the highest priority recommendations in the CWPP. So you'll get points for all of those. So if you do a project that only is doing a shaded fuel break, you'll get a point for that. If you're doing a project that's getting a shaded fuel break and we're doing outreach and education, and we're doing outreach specifically about structure hardening, you can pick up points for each of those you do. The temptation might be to say, I'm going to throw the kitchen sink at this so I get a really high number. But it's really a good idea to never write a grant project that says you can do more than you have the capacity to do. A better experience speaks here. So don't do that. Write a really good project, and the tool and being forced to force your ideas into very small text box. We have text limits on all of the project description boxes, which is annoying to do. I speak from experience, but I have always found that doing that exercise really helps me refine the language and the point of the project that I'm doing. Next slide. So there again is where you can pop into the project list and start entering project. They can be ideas, so long as they're well developed enough to have a basic budget and so on. So that is the project list.
Great. Thank you, Caroline, for sharing with us how to submit projects to this version of the CWPP. And actually, we're not going to use that slide yet. We'd now like to invite the Santa Rosa Fire Marshal, Paul Lowenthal, who's been a great partner with us in this process, to say a few words, including about priority projects for your neighborhoods and communities. So welcome, Paul, and thank you for joining us tonight. And please unmute and turn on your video.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. This has obviously been an exciting process for us. It's good to see some of the faces here, and as well as the team from the county and our partners at Sonoma County Fire District and CAL FIRE. Similar to this process, as mentioned by Carleone, we finalized and implemented our Community Wildfire Protection Plan just weeks before the glass fire in 2020. And the beauty about the collaboration of this project is that our CWPP is, as mentioned, incorporated into the county CWPP. So we really are working collectively and collaboratively with the mindset of doing what we can to mitigate the risks and protect our assets and values from what seems to be the new normal. With that, as Carleone mentioned, although a lot of the projects that are either in progress and or being worked on are not on the county's GIS system at this point in time, it doesn't mean that we're not doing anything. We are happy to report that we are in the process of receiving 3 different grants right now, 2 from HMGP through FEMA that we're working with Cal OES on, and 1 through Housing and Community Development, the total roughly $5.5 million that'll be coming here. That obviously not just helps to protect Santa Rosa, but also helps to protect the communities immediately around us, because again, we're all in this together. So in addition to that, we are actively working on a lot of vegetation management projects throughout the city using existing funds and some of the funds that came from PG&E settlement. But we do look forward to utilizing this plan as the mechanism to help leverage additional funds and make our community safer as we move into the future. So with that, thank you to the county team. And again, thank you to Supervisor Corsi for the support here locally, and our partners at CAL FIRE and Sonoma County Fire District.
Awesome. Thank you, Paul, and for all the support you've provided through this process. We have a few other local fire partners with us here tonight. I want to give them a chance to say anything if they'd like to. Cindy Foreman is the Sonoma County Fire District Fire Marshal. Cindy, would you like to say anything? And if so, please turn on your video and unmute.
Thank you, Tracy. I think I want to echo what Paul has mentioned, and certainly, give a big shout out to Carol Leone, who has always been such a strong advocate, and her immense talent in what she does is such an asset to our county. So I think I just want to continue to say that we want to work collaboratively. We all have the same goal and mission to protect our citizens, protect our assets, protect our resources, and to make sure that we're providing our citizens adequate emergency preparedness, adequate education, and I just thank you for allowing me to be here tonight. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Cindy. And I don't see, is Jim Thompson with us from Roanoke Park? I'm not seeing his name here. If you are, Jim, please chime in, turn on your video and unmute, and you're welcome to add your words. And congrats, Paul, on your grants. That's really good news. So thank you both, Paul and Cindy, for joining us and for all you.
Ben Nichols is also with us, Tracy.
Okay, Ben, take it away. Ben Nichols from CAL FIRE. Would you like to share anything?
Good evening. Thank you for putting it out there. We're super excited to be working with the county and all of our partner agencies throughout the county and updating this critical document. As Carol Leone mentioned earlier, the world has changed for us here since 2017, and this is providing a great factual metrics-based document to be able to allow us to look at the most critical projects here in the county and work towards making our community safer, and the folks that live in them have a peace of mind as we come into future fire seasons. So again, look forward to the public's input on what they would like to see in this document, and the great team that we have put together here for you to make sure that we've protected the communities as best we can coming into the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Really appreciate you've been to a lot of these meetings with us as well. So we're going to be moving it next into our listening session, where you will have an opportunity to provide comments or ask questions on what was presented tonight, including the risk assessment and the priority projects. For those of you who have already reviewed the draft CWPP or have started your review of it, we also welcome you to share with us any initial feedback you have on the CWPP. Before we start, we have some ground rules we'd like you to abide by tonight so we can have an effective and respectful process. These are that this is an opportunity to share your ideas, opinions, and questions. Everyone here has an equal voice, regardless of how much time you spend around fire or not, or any of it, and respect others' ideas and opinions. If anyone cannot abide by these ground rules tonight, please let us know in the chat. So with that, I think Do we have the next slide? Does it say how to do it? Let's check that. If we could have the next slide. There we go. So we now have 20 minutes, actually a little bit more. We're well ahead. We have half an hour if we need it for an open listening session, including more questions and answers. So like I mentioned before, you can use the raise hand function shown here on your screen. So go to reactions and then raise hand. And then if you want to speak, you turn on your video and unmute yourself when I call on you. If you prefer, you can send me your questions or comments via the chat to Tracy Cattleman. So does anyone have any questions or comments you'd like to share? Don't be shy. This is time to talk openly about what we've done, what you think, if you've got projects that you need help developing for the CWPP, anything like that. And then we're going to end this evening. Christina will explain to you how to submit your comments in the online document through the Adobe Cloud that the Supervisor Corsi mentioned. And any of the folks who spoke today, including the supervisor, are available to answer questions now. So please, what would you like to know from us? Or what thoughts do you have?
This is Esther. I actually have a question for a client of mine, actually. They own about, I don't know, 300 or so odd acres near the Mill Creek CWPP, but so sandwiched between Mill Creek and Santa Rosa. And they're, of course, looking to get a grant. And so should they submit their project to a local CWPP or the county-wide CWPP? I guess that's the main question.
Carol, would you like to answer that?
Yeah, ideally, I think they should probably submit it to both the local and the countywide because they do work together. But we are at this point, we don't have the capacity to pull the projects out of the local lists and populate them into the county list. And being able to say in a grant or whatever that you're supported by the local as well as the county CWPP would be probably pretty helpful for making your project sound legitimate and well supported for funders that you may want to submit it to. So I would definitely recommend both, and I would probably recommend that they start with the ranking tool because it does help you refine your project.
Cool,
Great.
thanks, Carol. Oh, Esther, did you have any more on that question?
Nope, that was it. Thanks.
Thank you both. And Carolyn, here's another question for you from Chris Roberts. I am unclear about the nature of projects. Developing a project sounds like it is for an agency rather than a regular citizen. Do we submit an idea without having any idea where the funding comes from?
So the reality of granting world is that grants are not usually given to individuals. And so if you're looking to fund a large scale project, you probably need to join up with a group. Roberta McIntyre from FireSafe Sonoma might want to jump in and talk about what they offer for that, to do that. But individuals typically don't do projects. And my opinion is that one house with defensible space or good fuels management around it is great, but an entire community that has worked together towards achieving the same goals is more than the sum of its parts. So that collaborative development of projects is really important. And it also really serves to get neighbors talking to neighbors and people get to know each other. And so it's a super helpful process. And again, the CWPP is not about we're writing projects and now somebody's going to find magic funding for them. It's about who is developing good projects, finding a funding source for them, or, and please don't ignore this, some of the best projects are projects that happen without any external funding. When you get a group of neighbors together to start undertaking, either make sure all the neighborhood, everybody in the neighborhood has adequate reflective signs for their houses and their roads, or let's just clear some of the brush along the roadside together. Some of those projects they're pretty easy to undertake, build community, and can be done for very little or no money at all. So it's not all about grant funding.
Cool, thank you. And Chris did add, and Roberta, I'm going to call on you in just a moment. He said, having said that, we have taken advantage of the county chipping program the last 2 years and has been great, but could be expanded. Thank you for that, Chris. And yes, Roberta, tell us about Fire Safe Sonoma and also local fire safe councils and how people can work in their communities to do these kind of projects.
Yeah, so just to kind of shore up some of what Carleon said, you know, individual property owners, really tough lift to try to get. First of all, to qualify a project, let alone get funding for it. So, you know, in the nearly ideal or a good path is to identify a community group that you can get together and create a local Firewise community or a local fire safe council, get it built up. Then the next step is to do really your strategic plan, which is essentially your risk assessment for a Firewise community or a local CWPP if you're forming a small local fire safe council. Then that risk assessment or CWPP, really same thing. Within the body of that exercise, you'll identify the weaknesses or the risks in your local footprint, your local community, and then you will prescribe projects to mitigate those risks. That's what a CWPP does. And so once you have those prescriptive projects to mitigate those risks, then you figure out how to resource those projects, identify what resources you need, how much time you need, what contractors you need, what internal resources you have, and you can put costs to those. That will ultimately evolve into a project that's fully developed with funding, timeline, etc. And once that's developed, then you could match that up with available grants. So that's kind of what I think the best cycle to get from here to there. However, if you have a small handful of people in a community and you can point to the countywide CWPP or the Sonoma County Hazard Mitigation Plan, if your project can be pointed to those documents and you could show, well, this helps mitigate the risks identified in these, then we can help you get from here to there as well. So that's fundamentally what Fire Safe Sonoma does. We help groups get formed, and once they are formed and have some ideas on projects, then we will help them find ways to get those projects funded.
Thank you, Roberta. Cindy, did you have something to add to this conversation? If so, please turn on your video and unmute yourself. Jump on in.
Thanks, Tracy. I just want to kind of continue to support some of the comments that have been made, both by, again, Chief Lowenthal, Roberta from Fire Safe Sonoma, and Cara Leone, as well as Chief Nichols. You know, fire knows no boundaries, and we have to understand that. We are all here together because we understand the concept that fire doesn't recognize that there's a city and there's a county and there's fire districts and all of those things. So all of us being here together shows that we are just all really on board with making sure that we are supporting all those measures and all of the resources that we have within the community. And I think that, you know, when we're looking at, and somebody mentioned something about private properties, and Chief Nichols and I have been talking recently, you know, in my fire district in particular, we have, you know, people that own large parcels that, you know, are 100+ acres and sometimes even larger than that, that abut other parcels that are even that large. And while, you know, local defensible space laws and ordinances don't apply on those kind of large scale properties, we recognize that doing fuel reduction, fuel management, and wildfire calming zones on those large parcels can affect communities adjacent. So I think that I just want to, you know, echo that comment of, we really need neighbors to start working together, and not only us as community leaders, but private property owners also really need to start looking at working collaboratively to, you know, make a difference when, particularly when we have these large parcels that, you know, abut other large parcels where we have a huge fuel load that could, you know, affect, you know, some of our communities. So thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. And I wanted to mention that if you've got a community group already formed, or you've got a group of neighbors and you've got an idea for a project and you need some help developing that, the North Coast Resources Partnership, NCRP, if you go to their website, they have technical assistance support available now for all the 7 counties in the North Coast region, including Sonoma County, and they'll help you put together your grant if you submit an application and you are granted that technical assistance. So that's another way to help get your project developed. Did you want to add something there, Carolyn, before I go to the next question?
And there are a lot of mapping tools being developed alongside and in conjunction with the CWPP. And Diane, if you want to pop in and talk a little bit about the tool that you've been working on. There's an increasing number of tools that are being developed that are really for helping homeowners understand the fuels, the native vegetation on their properties, and how to manage those for health, forest health and ecosystem health, and fire intensity reduction. So there's a lot coming up, and I think this is going to get a lot easier for all of us to do. So opening up to comment from Diane, if you're still on, otherwise we can move on.
Thank you, Carolyn. Yeah, my name is Deanne DiPietro. I work for Conservation Biology Institute, and we're working with Sonoma Water on the Sonoma County Wildfire Decision Support Framework, which has 2 tools being developed to improve mapping at a landscape scale, and the University Cooperative Extension, excuse me, is working on the other tool called the Wildfire Fuels Mapper, which helps landowners understand exactly what's on their property and what they can do to reduce fuels. So that is available now. If you look at the website at wildfirefuelmapper.org, you can find a ton of information about fuels and vegetation types and treatment types and what can be done to address fuel reduction. And this landscape scale tool will help us to see the big picture. We'll be working with you, Carolyn, to make sure it's tied into the CWPP, and many of you on the call will be asked to review it soon, and that will be coming out in around June.
Cool, thanks, Deanne. And that, I think, you know, we were talking about some of those larger parcels, larger property owners, and I think that would be especially important tool to help support some folks with larger properties and getting the data and ideas about management. So check out that tool, wildfirefuelmapper.org, and it's in the chat. So we have a question from Yanine, if I pronounce that correctly. Hi, could you please talk about how the countywide Community Wildfire Protection Plan will be linked to the multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan update? Thank you, Carolyn, that is you.
Yeah, it will be linked to it as either an appendix or as part of the wildfire chapter of it. We're going to do that in the next update session for the plan. So we'll be doing all the foundation work to tie them together, and then as soon as the update period opens, that was just signed off 2 months ago or so, then we'll link the 2 together.
So yes, they will be fundamentally integrated. This is kind of like expansion of the wildfire chapter. Other questions and comments? We have lots of time. Don't be shy. Go ahead, jump in, raise your hand, send me a comment. If any of our presenters and partners want to add any more to what you heard tonight, go ahead, jump in. We've got a quiet group tonight.
We do.
Get more conversation out of you all. Do we want to talk at all about some of those? Can we go to the next slide, Esther? You know, we have this list of projects that are in the Santa Rosa CWPP, and then, you know, we also have what we heard from folks at our meetings that we didn't put that into a slide. But if anybody's got comments or questions on some of these projects and other ideas about projects that you might want to develop, get more fleshed out to get submitted through the ranking tool in the next month, please jump in and let us know what you think, what you need. We're here to help. Thanks, Tian, for putting that link in the chat. I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys come up with there.
That's just a small summary.
Excellent. Go ahead, Cindy.
I appreciated the comment of how we integrate the hazard mitigation plans into the CWPP, and just to give people who may not be familiar with that component of this, is that the municipalities and/or agencies within the county have all gotten together, and I'll just use the example, and I think Paul can certainly echo this from the Santa Rosa side, but the town of Windsor is a municipality that's within the Sonoma County Fire District. And, you know, district division heads all got together and worked through this for months and months and months, working on what some of our hazard mitigation issues and preparedness and plans were within our own jurisdiction, within our own municipality. And then those all got inserted to the county-wide hazard mitigation plan. So I think that's just really important that the public understands that this was done not only, you know, at the county level, but they really took the time to allow all of the municipalities and agencies to come in and provide what they identified as their hazard mitigation needs and plans. So just to kind of give a little perspective to folks on sort of what that looks like and how that component integrates into the CWPP.
Thank you, Cindy. And you know, this all feeds up. So starting with a community wildfire protection plan, and then that feeds into that multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan, and the other, all the jurisdictions work together on that. That hazard mitigation plan basically is what's required of local jurisdictions to then feed up into the state through Cal OES, and that goes all the way up the food chain to FEMA, and that actually helps bring some of the money back down to the ground. So really important processes there. And I am going to share the link that Deanne shared with me. But before I do that, other comments, questions, thoughts about this list of projects? If not, we will get out of here early tonight, which is never a bad thing on a Zoom call. So Chris is asking, just for clarification, is the Sonoma County Curbside Chipping Program already one of the projects? Go ahead, Caroline.
I don't remember how we call that out, if we've called that out as a specific project. But that would be great to have it in there. Esther, do you remember?
No, it's not a specific project.
You know what?
It's in the recommendation.
It should be. I'll
Yeah.
add it. It's in the recommendations, yeah, but not as a specific project. But since, I mean, the county has ownership of that project, so yeah, we should just enter it. I'll do that.
Because the chipper program, which has been in operation for many years now, and I know that a lot of you folks out there have made use of that free chipper program. You cut it and stack it, and we send a chipper and a crew over to rearrange the fuel from up here to down on the ground. It's a really successful and very popular program. One of the best ways to make use of that chipper program is through community chipping projects. So if you can get your whole neighborhood together and you can do a whole lot in one day. That's a really good way to do it. Sign up for the chipper. There typically is, it gets really busy as soon as the first fire happens. So the best time to start putting your thoughts together on making your piles and getting your application in, start thinking about that now. I think it reopens in March. And typically the earlier you sign up to get the free chipping, the more availability there is. But it would be great to increase the funding, and that has been a recommendation in multiple documents.
Yeah, thanks, Chris, for bringing that to our attention. I think that's a perfect example of why this is a public draft CWPP and why we need your input and review, because there are things like that we missed that need to be in there. So please take the time to look through those first 90 pages if you can, if not the executive summary, and definitely check out the project list that you can get to through that story map on the hub site. And do check out the hub site and all the information up there. You can look at all the local CWPPs in Sonoma County on the hub site. You can see all the notes from the meetings we did a year ago for our initial public input, and see what ideas came out of your community and if there are any projects there that you'd like to get developed or further fleshed out to be included in this. So this is takes all of us to do this together. Kaylin has a question. How will future local risk assessments, i.e. local CWPPs, that are created after this February be incorporated into this update, if at all? You want to take that, Caroleon?
Yeah, well, that's one of the things that we're hoping to do during those annual maintenance meetings, is look at making sure that new CWPPs get listed in, and also take a look at the projects and update the project list. And if there's been progress, hey, we got funding, or if we don't know if the project is still active or not, that's what those annual meetings will help us to do. In the meantime, as new CWPPs are created, make sure that FireSafe Sonoma knows that they've been created, or you can email us at Permit Sonoma as well. But hopefully FireSafe Sonoma will be in a pivotal role for making sure that those things get updated in the future.
And
thanks, Kaylin.
And that's part of that living document that Carolyn was mentioning earlier. That will all be on the hub site. So the CWPP itself, as Christina's going to explain to us here in a few minutes, actually gets signed. And so it's somewhat of a static document for 5 years, but the hub site can be updated. And so that's where, again, you can go and see if there's a new CWPP, it can get posted there. As projects get developed, the project ranking tool is going to be live and ongoing, so people can continue to add projects, and then that will be reviewed at those annual reviews that Carolyn was talking about, and that will set us up way better for when we do the next update of the CWPP in 5 years. Any other questions before we hear from Christina on how y'all can add your comments in the rest of this process? And we will be sharing with you that email address and a few other links. So if you think of something later, you can definitely contact us. And we're also going to stay on for just a little bit after the meeting for our parking lot if you want to ask us anything without being live in front of everyone. Okay, cool. Well, thank you all. Thanks for taking the time to share with us what you're thinking. So Christina Smith from Permit Sonoma is now going to explain how you can submit your comments on the draft CWPP through February 28th and what the process will be to complete the CWPP. So please give Christina your attention. Welcome, Christina.
Hello, I'll just be going over the CWPP review and signing process. We'll be holding a few more meetings this month with the other supervisory districts. We ask that you add any projects you think we need to consider in the project ranking tool on the CWPP hub site. The review and commenting period will end on February 28th. After we receive all public comments, we will send the final draft to the CWPP Steering Committee for review, and then finally present it to the Board of Supervisors in May during Wildfire Prevention Week. We'll also be asking, during that time, we'll also be asking for the other signatories to sign off on the draft, the final draft. And then after all that happens, we'll then incorporate it into the CWPP into the multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan. Next slide. And Tracy, if you can go ahead and put the link to the draft in the chat. I'll just go over how to comment, review and comment on the CWPP draft. First, what you're going to do is you're going to go to the CWPP project page on the Permit Sonoma website. Then you will click on the link to the CWPP draft. It's at the top of the page in a yellowish greenish box. The link should take you to the draft, and on the right-hand panel, there is an add a comment box. You'll click on that box, and then from there, it's gonna change into insert your name. You don't need to put your full name if you don't want to. You can also put your initials. Once that's done, just click continue as guest, and you'll be able to add your comments anywhere in the document. If you are unable to comment on the CWPP itself, please feel free to download the document. You'll see at the top right corner an arrow pointing down into a box. That's how you download it. You can review it, and then you can send us your comments through email at wildfire-planning@sonoma-county.org. Sorry, I'll go ahead and also put the email address in the chat to make things easier. Next slide. And that's it from me.
Does anyone have any questions for Christina about how to submit your comments either in the Adobe Cloud Online, how to download, or the timeline of the process? We are having, I think tomorrow is District 1. And then next week we have on Wednesday and Thursday, District 4 and 5 at the same time. So we will be having 3 more meetings over the next week or so, and then incorporating all your comments, but you will have another month to submit them to us. So take your time and let us know what you think. Any questions for Christina or about the process in general?
That'll be comments and projects into the project ranking tool too, up until the 28th. We do have to have a final cutoff point, but you can enter those in at any point in that period.
Thank you for that important point. Definitely get your projects submitted by February 28th. Well, then we appreciate everyone taking the time tonight. Can I have the next slide, please? To work with us on completing the CWPP. So Sonoma County, one more slide. So Sonoma County has a community wildfire protection plan that is created and led by you, the dedicated residents of Sonoma County. Please let your friends, family, and colleagues know that they can continue to participate in this process through February 28th. And they can get more information via the links on this slide and in the chat. You can also email us directly via the email on the slide and in the chat. Again, those links are, and I'm going to read them. Permit Sonoma CWPP website is https://sonomacounty.ca.gov/PRMD/fire-prevention/wildfire-protection-plan/. The HUD site that we've talked about several times tonight is https://arcg.is/mzc4l0. And then the CWPP draft that's in Adobe Cloud to add your comments is https://adobe.ly/3pw And finally, the CWPP project email is permit-sonoma-wildfire-plan@sonoma-county.org. If you need help accessing any of these sites, please do contact us by email or phone. And finally, if you'd like to hang out and talk with us in our virtual parking lot, we'll be staying on for another few minutes, up to 15 minutes, to answer any questions you may have. Thank you again for being with us tonight to help complete the Community Wildfire Protection Plan to prepare Sonoma County communities for wildfire. Good night.